Hello, everyone. Good evening. We are here together to meet another speaker of Poliglotar. This time we have Pedro here. Hello, Pedro.
Hey, hi Juliano. Thanks for having me. It's a great pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's a great pleasure to talk to you always. And Pedro, let's start our interview asking you where do you live and what do you do?
I'm from Brasilia. I was born in Brasilia, Distrito Federal. I have lived here all my life. I'm 28 years old right now, and I'm a language teacher. I teach English, French, and Spanish.
And when did you start getting interested in languages and why?
That's a good question. I think I learned English before being interested in it. When I was a kid, I my parents enrolled me in an English course. I studied for several years, but I didn't like it. Um, and then when I was in college, I met a teacher who was a polyglot. He was a literature teacher. He was more worried in reading than speaking, but he could read in like 10 languages or something. French, English, German, ancient Greek, Latin. And I was very, very interested by it. I was kind of shocked, actually. And then I started learning some other languages like French and German and Italian, Spanish. Those were my first four when I was in college. So 8 years ago.
So in the beginning, you were interested more in reading than speaking, right?
Exactly, exactly. I wanted to be able to read in many languages, as many languages as I could, mostly because of literature. That's something I like very much. I actually have a master's degree in literature. And at some point, I thought, oh, maybe I can start teaching these languages as well. And that was the point when I started getting more interested in speaking, practicing a little bit, refining my pronunciation to be able to be a good teacher.
Okay, so then when you thought about becoming a teacher, you realized that you needed to speak and not only to read, right?
Yeah, basically that's it. That's it. Um, like I think I really believe in input. So I really believe that if you read a lot and you listen a lot, it will get easier in the moment you have to speak. Of course, these things are not automatic, so it's not like you're reading, only reading, and then at some point you're going to be speaking fluently. That's not how it works exactly. But I think if you have had a lot of contact with the language, reading and listening, if you need to develop your speaking skills, it's I wouldn't say it's easy, but it's less problematic, right? You already have the vocabulary, you're familiar with the structures of the language, so it's a small step, let's say, to practice output to speak.
Okay, and Pedro, now tell us a little bit about the topic of your presentation at Poliglotar. What are you going to talk about?
Yeah. Oh, Juliana, thanks very much for giving me the opportunity to talk about the subject that I'm going to talk about, that is the IPA, the International Phonetic Alphabet. For those who don't know it, it's an alphabet that you can learn to have a better understanding of how language sounds work. And it can get very technical. It's a tool that linguists use, for example, to describe languages. But if you learn in an instrumental way, it can be a very good tool for you to become a better polyglot. When you go to the dictionary, you see those strange symbols that are supposed to tell you how a language, how a word should be pronounced. If you learn those symbols, then you can become a better polyglot because you can improve the pronunciations of the languages you already speak, and you can accelerate the process of learning new languages. You can learn faster if you focus in pronunciation first. I'm going to talk about my experience with Chinese. I focus in pronunciation in the beginning. I think it was a very good way to save time in the process. So that's how I think learning the IPA, the International Phonetic Alphabet, can help you become a better polyglot. That's what I'm going to talk about.
Yeah, do you think language learners are aware of this alphabet and polyglots? Do they know what it is? Do they use it a lot, or only very polyglots who are very detailist? I don't know.
Man, that's a very good question, and I don't think I have the answer for that. What I can tell you is my general impression, right? Is a lot of people that are language enthusiasts, they can speak many, many languages. Most of them have some idea, like, oh, I know there's this IPA thing. I know it could help me, but I never took the time to study, it, to learn it, to learn how to use it. So I would say, but I'm not sure about it. I would say that's the general scenario. People have an idea, like, oh, I know those strange symbols, but I don't know exactly how they could help me. And I intend to make people more aware, right, of the benefits. If you're looking to be a polyglot in the long run, speaking 5, 10, 15 languages, or learning languages until the day you die, that's my dream. Then it's a time saver. It's a good idea to learn.
Do you teach this alphabet to your students?
Yeah, so I do. For those who ask me, I have some, especially when I have some students that have learned multiple languages with me. I have one student, Camila. We started with French, then we moved to English, and now we are learning Spanish. We've been together for like we've been having classes for almost 3 years now. And then at some point, I said, you know what? If we learn the IPA, it will get easier and everything will be more clear, And then we had a few classes. I taught her the basics. It can be really useful in some specific topics, like the ED sounds in English. Of course, you can read a book and see the list of sounds. Like it can sound like a t, like looked. It can sound like a d, like hugged. It can sound like an id, like tested. But if you wanna understand the logic behind it, learning the IPA is a great way to do it, because you understand how it works, and then you can apply for multiple languages. Everything makes more sense, and everybody's happy.
Okay, yeah. I studied languages for a very long time, but I don't remember a teacher telling me about this alphabet, or at least only they show some examples or in some words, but not very often. So it's not a common topic for me, in my experience.
Yeah. Oh, that's nice of you to tell me, because you're like a polyglot. I respect. In Portuguese, I would say um poliglota de envergadura. Yeah, maybe the interpreters can help me with that. But um, but yeah, man, that's very common. Of course, for some people, pronunciation is not a big deal. Like pronunciation is one of my favorite topics in language learning. I don't know if that's your case, if you like the details and learn like everything in a language, or if you want to learn like how to communicate and that's it for you. Like what's your goal learning languages?
I like to have a very good pronunciation, but I think I prefer to learn the pronunciation from someone speaking than reading some letters in a dictionary or something. I know that it could help if I don't have anyone to listen to that sound, but yeah, I try to repeat what people say, and that's how I do.
That's very good. I think um, like in the end, you're going to have to train your ear, right? To learn, to hear a new sound and to produce it. I think what the IPA can do is to give you a shortcut. Like, for example, there are some tips you can have by using the IPA. So you can learn how to produce the sound faster. Like I'm currently learning Chinese, Mandarin Chinese. And I thought that the big problems of Chinese were the tones. where when you say ma, 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 those are different things. They constitute different syllables and different words. It's a huge mess, extremely interesting, fascinating, but super hard. That's not actually like the hardest thing. There are sounds in Chinese that don't exist in these mainstream languages that I spoke, like English and French and German. There are sounds that at first I couldn't distinguish them. I couldn't even distinguish by hearing. Sounds like ch, you know? In the beginning, it was the same for me. So how can you mimic a sound that you can't distinguish?
I understand. Yeah.
You know, so it takes some time for you to be able to distinguish the sounds, so you can be able to imitate them. And if you know the IPA, you can take a look at the chart, and you can take a look at a good source, and you can say, oh, this sound, this sound, this sound, I don't know them. Let me see how I can produce them. Oh, I'm going to produce with the tip of my tongue in my teeth, or I'm going to produce vibrating my vocal cords or not. So there's all these kind of technical tips you can use to get it right from the start.
I see. Pedro, we have a question from Kleber. I will allow you to ask the question, Kleber, okay? You can speak now. If Kleber cannot speak, okay, it's not working. So I'm going to read the question. Pedro, do you find there's still a lot of interest in IPA these days, especially when there are so many apps you can get the pronounced words for you?
Yeah, I think he wrote another observation, right? Like, yeah, particularly
with the French nasal sounds, the IPA did not help me much, as I had to know what they actually sound like first.
Yeah, man, that's a very good question. Thanks very much. You know, hearing, to be able to hear a sound that you didn't know existed can be very hard, can be a tricky thing to do. So at first, when I was learning English, people told me, oh, there's a difference between man and men. But I couldn't hear it. Like, I couldn't hear the distinction. So I had to trust them that there was a difference. I think pronunciation in the beginning can require a leap of faith, you know? Like, I'm gonna trust my teacher that there's a difference between these two sounds, but right now I can't distinguish them. But it can be counterintuitive. But if you learn how to produce the sound, it can be easier for you to distinguish the sound later. So this very example, man, singular, and men, plural. If you know that the different vowels have different openings in your mouth, and you see a pattern of vowels like e, e, and you see that your mouth opens more and more, e, a, and then by learning the IPA, you know that this sound of man is like a mouth of a, where you pronounce e, so it gets easier to produce. You say a, man, hat, black, you know? And then you can learn how to produce it. And then, oh, now I see that it's a different sound. And now I can start to distinguish it from native speakers. So this is the first part. I think it's an awesome tool, because you can have a more complex and complete experience with different sounds of language. Specifically talking about French, I understand your experience with the French nasal sounds, and that I'm not sure about this exactly, but I think that when I was learning French and I was learning the symbols, the IPA symbols for French, it was a little bit hard for me to find a safe source. You know, I found some controversial sources that were saying different things using different symbols. So I think a tip is to look for a very up-to-date source and done by by professionals, by linguists, then you can have uh, uh, a more accurate source, and then you can improve your perception. Yeah, but was that good?
Okay,
Is it?
yeah, that's a good answer. Okay, Pedro, I think our time is up, and it was very nice having you here in this live for presenting you to the public. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was very nice. Yeah, thanks very much. See you
So,
in Poliglotar.
yeah, see you in Polyglota. Good night. Bye.
Good night. See ya.